Hello, filmmakers and watchers and lovers of, and dreamers and thinkers about film. On this week's episode of HTM a Film, Dan and I discuss how the successful runs of our separate plays have led us not into the yellow submarines of endless happiness, but into the octopi gardens of post-show depression. But strawberrier fields await, as Dan has finally seen Hamilton, which I saw years ago back when people saw it properly. One of us loved it, one of us did not. Find out who, and find out why, and which who did, and which who didn't why. And here's a hint, it wasn't me. Dan next catapults into an unexpected defense of Ant-Man Quantumania. It is less bad than it actually is, his argument goes. Even though it truly is bad, it's just not that bad, he claims, and gives examples before artfully dodging into a big announcement that his film, Old Excalibur, has finally gone into pre-production! ! We talk about the time-traveling detective show Bodies, and how Our Flag Means Death makes a critical storytelling error that only Monty Python has ever successfully made. My name is Sean Hurley, and I'm a playwright and TV show staff writer, and sitting directly across the mocha vente latte of the Atlantic Ocean from me is the pre-director and now pre-producer of the film Old Excalibur, Dan, ! Freeman. Start it,
right. How is your play, Sean?
Oh, I didn't want to start with that.
Oh, okay, right. We'll start with me.
How is your play, Dan?
It was great. Oh, yeah, I haven't seen you since, have I? No, it was great. It was so exciting. I don't know if I told you this, but I have a friend who was in a very, very big film, and he was, flown around the world and everything, and, it was really...
Wait, you're not going to say? You're not going to say what the film was or who this...
I'm not going to say.
Oh.
No.
I don't even want to hear this story.
He said it was brilliant. I had such a good time. And afterwards, he had the worst depression possible.
Yes, yeah.
And that's how it feels after, we did the play. It was very intense. We were, rehearsing, and it was great. And then we went out for drinks afterwards. We had a lovely time. It was a very exciting town, Lancaster. It was really, really very busy and lots going on. And then afterwards, it's kind of a come down. It's kind of, I need a day doing more or less nothing, dribbling and eating ice cream.
I feel like I'm going to be depressed for, I don't know, I can't even foresee the end of it. I think I'll cease being, and it's its own type of depression. And I think that's why I was hesitant to say anything, because the play went well. It was, better than I could have expected. But I felt awful the whole time, and worse. And it felt a little bit like when our son Sam went away to school, or there's some kind of a sense of like you've lost something. Maybe it's this thing you've been working on for such a long time, and suddenly you don't need to work on it anymore, and it's all done, and you're like, now what do I do? There's this real sense of like an absence has arrived, and I don't know what to do with myself, and I don't know if I was completely satisfied with how things went. I don't know if you can ever be completely satisfied, whatever that even means. I don't think that even exists. I think you're always hoping for more than you can possibly imagine, like, I don't know. Not only is it sold out, but all these lovely things happen, and now it's going to be on Broadway, and they're turning it into a movie, and someone wants to write a novel about it, or, I didn't have any of those fantasies, but I think you do expect more, some unknown more, and then that never happens. What you always get is some known less. And anyway, you sound like, even though we sort of had a similar experience, yours sounds like it was a little brighter and happier and merrier, and like you had a really great time at some point and then kind of depressed. I didn't ever have that really good time, but I'm just wondering.
Oh, that's terrible. That's really sad.
Thank you.
I must admit, I think we had a great time, to be honest. I was just thrilled to have it being performed and, working with actors, really great actors, and just, getting a nice reaction from the audience. And yours, it sounds like a huge success, but you're so funny about your reactions to things. You're difficult to please. You're like, I feel like when you get a birthday present, you'll go, oh, it's exactly what I wanted. Now I can't, now there's no disappointment I can enjoy not being brought down by or something,
I think that you're correct in making me sound awful, but I feel like it's a really natural thing that a lot of people experience in lots of different ways when they get what they've asked for, and when it's been some sort of like measure of work to get there, whether it's, I don't want to equate it to like postpartum depression, because that is a whole thing unto itself. But it's like you get the new job and then you work there for a week and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have thought bigger or differenter. I think people don't talk about that part, the downside of this. And that's probably good, because it's not fun to hear about, I imagine. So why are we talking about it, Dan? I blame you.
Well, because you're a bad person, I suppose.
And you told that story about some famous person in all this major film. It seemed to have nothing to do with your story, and then you didn't tell us who that was.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't. I mean, it had nothing to do. I mean, I do tangents, but yeah, I just think, well, after I've done something like a production of any sort, I mean, especially a shoot, you're up at dawn, and then you're all day. If you're directing everything, you're never off. You don't get a break, do you? And everybody is referring everything to you. So then afterwards, I find physical depression. And then because I'm autistic, that's kind of, I can't tell whether it's physical or mental. So I get, a day or a day and a half, maybe, when I'm not really. I know now to just don't try and do anything, just sit and eat ice cream and watch films. But I'm sorry to say that I don't feel like you do, really. I mean, I understand the sort of, when you've got a kind of pressing urgency all the time, when you're doing, you're building up, you're writing the thing, trying to make it good, and then you get there, and then you're making it, and then you haven't got it anymore. There's no urgent something that you have to do. Every time when you get up in the morning, there's nothing that urgently needs doing. I think it is like, this sounds really flip, but I think it's like caring for someone who dies, maybe. After someone you've been caring for so long dies, then you feel kind of a sort of release, maybe, that you don't have to do it, and then you feel sorrow, and then for them, and then you feel the sorrow of the sort of lostness of not having anything urgent to do all the time. And I suppose maybe there's a small type of mourning that goes with it.
Right, and you have all of these feelings that you've sort of generated over months that surround this. It's sort of like the death of a thing rather than the death of a person, but this thing that's sort of rising up before you, and you have all these complex feelings. So you can't wait until it's done. That's one thing,
Yeah.
You sort of, in a dark way, can't wait for this person to die, because it's so hard for them and it's so hard for you, and there's going to be relief beyond that. You don't want them to, but there's still that guilty feeling like, oh well, I'll be relieved then. But you just have all of these emotions and this physical structure and a lifestyle that has developed around this thing, like a play, going to rehearsals, being there, thinking about it, wrestling with it, building the set and the structures and seeing the cost. It's a little world, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And now I don't know what to do. I mean, I like that ice cream idea, sitting there for a day. I mean, but for me, it feels like it's going to last until I find something else to work on, really. Like something that really grabs me that I want to work on. But I can't, I don't know what that is. Have you ever read Henry Miller, Tropic of Cancer and all that?
No.
American. So he would, he was very good about these kinds of things. So he would go to bed. If he was depressed, he would go to bed. And next day he would wake up, and if he still felt like he was depressed, he would just stay in bed. So he would often stay in bed for 3, 4, 5 days. And then when he did finally get out of bed and return to the world, his depression was gone. I always wanted to do that, but it doesn't seem possible in the modern world to have the luxury of that depression bath of Henry Miller.
I don't think I have time to do anything. I mean, I've always got something to do, so I'm not sure I get the chance to reflect and, have a long-term sort of...
So far, this podcast has been how to be sad about your play. So maybe we should, do we have any filmmaking topics that we can topic to.
It's not just about, I think these are germane. I think these thoughts are useful.
It pertains to filmmaking as well.
Yeah.
Any kind of creative. If you paint a painting or, you do anything that occupies you for a little while, you probably will feel this and then feel strange and guilty about feeling those things, even though it's incredibly common. I mean, it's just like a thing.
It is.
You have a big gallery show, you're going to be depressed afterwards. You work on a movie, you're an actor in it, a writer on it, the director of it. Afterwards, you're depressed, It's just how it goes.
Yeah, I think it's useful to talk about it and useful to recognize it. Because I often say this, that what we do is not brain surgery, or we're not working down a mine. So it is not what you call difficult in the big scheme of things, but in the small scheme of things, it is difficult. It is really difficult. I mean, I know that actors get kind of a hard time because of the actors that people know are, rich and have these exciting lifestyles, but it is really, really hard. And I mean, physically it's exhausting. They have to, psychologically, it's exhausting, mentally. And, creating anything as in the way we do it is really tiring. And for what it is, it's very difficult. So I think you've got to recognize that. And I think particularly if you're thinking, I shouldn't be feeling bad about it, it's such a barrier. The sort of guilt that you should be glad you should be glad that you're able to do it, but also recognize that it's hard and just either do it or don't, but don't sort of go into writing or creating anything and thinking, I should be feeling better about this. It's hard.
Right. And it definitely does have its good moments. Was that a strange beep noise that I just heard?
Apparently.
Maybe that was my phone. Sorry.
It might have been someone connecting with me on LinkedIn on my phone.
Okay.
On which we're talking, but
what is the point of LinkedIn? I can't gather it.
Okay, I'll tell you what the point is.
It seems just irrelevant and irritating, and it's just like the social network that's just out there to bother people.
Yeah, that's it.
But it seems to have some point that for professionals. What is it?
Well, as you know, I'm raising investment for a film at the moment.
Yes.
And I've got some help with this from some lovely people who may come on the podcast. But you have to make contact with investors. So what you can't do is put on your website, hey, I'm looking for investment, come and invest in my thing. You got to find the right people, because investment is a sort of partnership as well. So how you do that is on LinkedIn. Well, that's why I'm on LinkedIn, to find investors and, to a lesser extent, collaborators of different sorts, but it's a sort of work and social networking thing. So I'm on it because I was told to be on it. And this is another thing that you can I think you can go into this sort of thing by thinking, oh God, I've got to go on and talk about work and, find strangers and talk to strangers and what have you. But I think there is an upside to it in that if you go in with the right attitude, you actually get to talk to some nice people. I mean, you find. Are you talking
about LinkedIn? Going into LinkedIn and talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you have an excuse to meet people, and a lot of those people will be not very interesting or whatever, but some are really, really nice. And it's like networking events, which I'm supposed to go to a networking event in Wales in a couple of days, and I'm resisting it. So
I am too.
Yeah, but because neither you nor I like going to these things. However, every time I go to one, I meet someone really interesting or nice. Like not just like, oh, they're like really cool. Like I met someone at the last one I went to who introduced me to William Todd Jones, who is now our creature effects guru.
Right.
He's the best creature effects person in the world. And, it was just because I went up and talked to this guy who had a really cool dragon. I just, went up and said, which is something you should always, I always say this to other people, I say it to my kids and stuff, that in my preachy ways, that enjoy stuff loudly or it'll disappear quietly. And if I like something, I try and say it to the person who's made it or done it. And that's what I'd like. If someone's enjoying this podcast, then she should say so. She
should. She does. She's already told us.
She does say it. Yeah, she does say it. Nice.
She doesn't actually need to say it anymore. I feel like.
Yeah, no, we'll let her off.
I feel like we put a lot of pressure on Juliet.
I reckon she's probably
to really shore us up in the audience side of things, and that's too much.
Yeah. I think she's probably left left by now.
You know, I feel like that's really lovely advice, and I feel like it's also, I almost have I don't have the opposite advice, but I have, so if I was at one of these events and I saw a man with a dragon, and I really loved the dragon, or I was very impressed by his little booth or whatever, that's when I have the most difficulty talking to someone. If I'm really interested, like if I'm attracted to someone, something, whatever it is, the fact that I am is a bar that stops me from getting closer. In fact, all I do then is just slowly back away.
You're a disaster. You're a disaster of a man. I don't know how you function.
I thought you were going to give me some sense of like understanding and consolation, and yes, that makes sense to me, and I understand. Yes, but here's how to meet the man with the dragon. I feel like that's a human thing too, but I feel like your advice is right, and I need you to tell me that, and you already have, so I'll take that as my daily lesson. Thank you.
What was the lesson you took from
that? I need to enjoy things loudly, or something happens small. I can't remember the whole lesson, but I remember that first part.
I'm glad it hit home in that way. No, I mean, I find myself resisting this kind of thing very much, but
yeah,
unfortunately, I mean, I have to do the LinkedIn thing. I have to, no choice, but I just know from experience. I think somebody asked me once, how did I write? I used to write for a regular show, and someone asked me, wasn't I scared that I wouldn't be able to come up with the material? And I am scared always that I won't be able to come up with the material. Every script I start, I think, will I be able to, will this be any good? Will I be able to finish it? Blah, blah, blah. But the only thing that comforts me is that I know that I can, because I've done it in the past. So experience.
Right.
If you experience is what you don't have to be confident. You just have to know that it happened like this in the past. And if you're a beginner and you think you're good, you think you're going to be able to do it fine, then that's arrogance.
Right.
It's natural to feel you're not going to be able to do it. And I don't think that feeling goes away.
I think you do have to have that fear. So like the first, 6 times I went into the writer's room, before I went into the writer's room, I just spent, hours trying to think of ideas, things that I could bring with me into this thing, because I didn't feel like I'd be able to come up with anything while I was in, the room. But then, of course, there were times when I didn't have that opportunity. And then I realized, I can think of things while other people are around in the room. I somehow this idea that the only way I can think or come up with any kind of creative anything is if I'm all by myself somewhere and it's peaceful and nothing is bothering me and everything's just right. That's how I come up with ideas. But I had to realize and go through this experience of, fear and suffering and preparation, and then, not having anything, going into writers' rooms without anything, and then just realizing, I can still come up with stuff. And then I don't worry about it anymore. Now I don't have to do anything. I don't have to prepare. And I just hope that my mind isn't falling apart. That's the only thing I have now, is I just hope my mind isn't falling apart. And it probably is.
I think it is.
You can probably tell. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Hamilton a couple of nights ago.
The film or the musical, the live musical?
I saw it live.
Oh, you did? Okay, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I think it's great more than I liked it. I mean, I think it's brilliant. I mean, his lyrics and his songwriting and just the whole thing is a work of genius. I don't love it, that my wife and daughter loved it. My daughter was kind of staring at the stage with her mouth open, kept looking at me, grinning, and that was lovely to see. And it was great to see how much everybody, the whole audience, loved it. Absolutely packed at the Palace Theatre in Manchester, which is huge. But I mean, he's so good. He's so clever, Lin-Manuel.
Did I talk about how my experience of it before? I can't remember if I did.
No, you didn't. Let me guess.
You're gonna guess? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, you tell me.
You went along. You went along, and you liked it, but that made you sad. And then
is that my simple way of being? Is like everything makes me sad, and
No, I hadn't finished.
Oh, okay.
Then you no, go on. No, what did you think?
Okay, so anyway, so you remember when Hamilton was just sort of like the Barbie movie of 2017 through 2020. It was the big thing that everybody was talking about. People who hadn't seen musicals ever were dying to see it for some reason. Like it was almost a sickness. It was like this thing that people just needed to see Hamilton. I needed to see it too, because I was like, what is this thing? But it was so, at a certain point, it got incredibly expensive. You know, it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars. People were flying in and spending, you know, $10,000 to see Hamilton. They'd fly in, they'd sit in their $2,000 seat, watch Hamilton. Anyway, so I didn't have that money. But while I was in Chicago for a writer's room, and I was there for like 4 or 5 months, they had, Hamilton was playing at one of the big in-town Chicago theaters, and they had a daily lottery where 3 people would get free tickets. So every single day I would throw my name, my email into this little lottery thing. And one day, maybe like 30 days later, I finally won it. So I got like this really amazing ticket, and I sat like, I think it was like a front row seat, and I sat with the other lottery winners. And I was so ready to be so blown away that it hardly did anything to me at all.
You're a disaster of a man. You will never be.
Is it my fault?
It's your fault.
Okay.
It's your fault. You're a bad person. There's something wrong with you. There is something wrong with your brain. You cannot enjoy anything.
I didn't hate Hamilton. I just hated me experiencing Hamilton. I felt like at the end of it, I was like, I can't tell anyone how I felt about that experience because they won't like me anymore. And because I'm probably wrong. I feel like people just love that Hamilton so much that whatever my experience was my own experience. It's particular to me, and I don't need to weigh in on it. My opinion doesn't count. You said it. You're right. There is something wrong. There's something wrong. I just thought it was. To
quote Bad Santa, you need many years of therapy. Many, many years.
Do you think there actually is something wrong with me?
Yeah, do you want a list?
I mean, do you think that people that don't like Hamilton, there's something sort of like rotten about them, their souls, or like they can't feel something?
Yeah. Oh. I don't know. I think no, to be honest, I mean, I don't listen to it. You know, it's on in the house quite a lot because my family like it. But I think it's brilliant. It's just not my cup of tea. But I mean, did you not appreciate the brilliance of it, or the songwriting, the rhyming schemes? You know,
I think I appreciated all the technical stuff, but without any emotional relationship to it.
Right.
So it's sort of like, you know, it's like watching one of these talent shows when somebody comes on and they have an amazing voice and they can dance, but you hate the song, you know?
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I felt like. I thought it was incredibly well staged. It was a strangely chaotic show. Like nothing ever was still. There's always, all the people in the background were always doing little things like polishing candles or tying little ropes, or everybody was moving and busy. It was like an ocean of human activity while there was a principal wave in front of you, you know, powerfully delivering something. But I just felt like it all washed over me, and I didn't get to feel like the temperature of it. I just didn't get it.
Right.
But and it might have been that I was so desirous. I think when your expectations are raised, you're hoping that the thing that you want to be fulfilled is going to be fulfilled. So whatever, like for me, some sort of like ultimate musical experience would have some sort of romantic element to it, probably would have some kind of classical element to it, maybe just more traditional, old-fashioned-y kind of music. Not that I'm against, you know, hip-hop. I like it, but it doesn't touch my soul. But so I think that it's sort of like we're dreaming of the dessert that we most like best, and we're hoping that gets delivered. The cake that I love, which is, you know, has a little raspberry in it and a coconut frosting, and this was a different cake.
You know what? I was just thinking of. I started to watch Ant-Man Quantumania. I like Ant-Man very much, the first 2 films. And then somebody told me, somebody who was heavily involved in Quantumania, who I know, told me it was crap. And I watched it with that in mind. Okay, I've only watched the first half of it, but I quite enjoyed it. and I could tell which bits were crap and which weren't. I mean, so there were crap things about it and good things about it.
Was there a general crap thing about it? Like it was just stupid, but you could enjoy it? Or were there just particular places where it just fell to pieces?
So I'll tell you what I thought was wrong with Quantum Mania. And because I think there's a good tip for writing in it. And that was, it had some good gags at the beginning and it had some great visuals, at least so far. But what it didn't do was take the central narrative seriously. So I would strongly advise any writers, screenwriters listening to heed the words of John McTiernan, who was the director of Die Hard and Predator and some, other great films. He said that you can make jokes about anything except for the central narrative, something like that. So in other words, you've got to have a central story, and that has to matter. That has to matter to the filmmaker, the audience, and it has to matter to the characters as well. So if they are trying to find the Holy Grail or something and they start joking about it, it really, really damages the film, I think, because it's got to be the most urgent thing in the world. And that means they've got to treat it as urgent, not joke about it because it's too important. But also they, oh no, I've lost my thread. Imagine that.
Well, you know what? I feel like that's absolutely true. And then the other way to look at it is the only way that you can do that is if you're Monty Python, because I think that is what they decided to do, was to make fun of the central narrative. So I think that your story is sacred. The central story is sacred, and you have to leave that as the pure and shining holy thing that stays in your film, and you can't play with it in the way that you can play with everything else. But I think what Monty Python did was that they played directly with that. So have you seen Our Flag Means Death?
I've seen the first one, yeah.
I feel like that's what they do, and it made the show feel unimportant to me, because it felt like they were playing with the sense of the story itself. Like there wasn't anything actually important about the story.
Yeah.
Because they were playing with the story. So I didn't want to watch it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I've watched the first one and I was really keen to watch it. And I just didn't find it funny at all. It hasn't got any jokes in it. So
it's this very strange kind of silly.
Yeah, I mean...
And the silliness didn't catch me, but maybe it would later. Maybe it's like you have to learn...
Yeah.
Why it's funny. And a lot of times really good comedy is like that. It takes you a while to learn why it's funny because it's sort of novel, but I didn't want to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, I think art is in the intention. So you're thinking, what is the filmmaker trying to do? I mean, I think with any art anyway, you kind of give people a menu at the beginning or a language that the thing is going to speak in. And then, you succeed or fail on the terms that you've set out.
Yeah.
And I think that Our Flags Means Death was trying to be funny and wasn't. That took for me. But I think it's like Pulp Fiction, for example, messes with narrative structure in a way. In another way, it's the normal narrative structure, but messes with it in a very deliberate way. So you're never in... it's not like he's not quite getting the narrative structure or it's not important. I mean, it's very, very important. He knows exactly what he's doing. And actually, I remembered my point I was trying to make, that the central narrative must be important. And I think that one scene necessitates the next one, certainly in terms of the central narrative. So something happens and that forces things to go into the next scene, which forces things to go into the next scene. So you've got this central thrust and the sense that the author of the piece or the writer or whatever knows exactly what they're doing and has covered every base and is really using every tool in the box to entertain you. So that's Quantum Mania.
So Quantum Mania didn't do that.
Quantum Mania, I think, didn't do that. Yeah, it had a lot of disparate elements. It wasn't that it wasn't funny. It had some good gags, but film is so unforgiving. It had some little bits that just dragged too much or went too off the central narrative. And
I think it's hard when you have performers like Paul Rudd who are just sort of like, just charming, doing nothing. He's a very easy person to just hang around with. And I feel like any kind of movie with Paul Rudd threatens to fall into that area were just hanging around. Because just his being, you know, it's like he draws film toward him in that way. And I feel like a director, if they're not sharp enough, will just sort of allow the film to become Paul Ruddified.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what happens with Quantumania. Maybe there was a little bit of a shallowness in the storytelling, or like maybe the script wasn't as sharp as everybody wanted it to be. And so they just let it get a little Paul Ruddy, a little muddy with Ruddy.
Well, there was one thing that was really bad, really bad. And that was that Evangeline Lilly just almost didn't say anything for the first, 10, 15 minutes. She just was. And, I was kind of face palming thinking, like, are we back to having the girlfriend character? I mean, that's really bad, really, really bad nowadays.
Well, it's very glaring now because I think that so much of our media has kind of like, I mean, you can't have like the black person that's just the black person, that whole sort of like the way that like stereotypes were fulfilled in our media, and how we've moved past that into a newer,
well,
people are people, and
I hope we have, but I mean, I don't think we're quite. I don't think we're there yet. I mean, but Saint Guillermo del Toro, there's I think it's Pacific Rim. I think there are two women in that, and they're both kind of dolls, kind of. I mean, I sort of don't want to wag my woke finger at you, but I think, still way off. I mean, these things still happen. And
no, well, I'm saying the fact that you're picking up on that.
I think you're a racist, basically.
But I'm saying the fact that you're picking up on that in Quantumania, oh no, she's been reduced to the girlfriend role. I bet you're not alone in feeling that.
Yeah.
And I think in part that's because so much of I'm not saying everything's great, but I think if you're not sort of with the kind of whatever the word is, I don't like the word progressive, but progressive is fine. But if you're not with sort of the progressive movement of things, like where we've come, then I do feel like your material really doesn't feel smart or fair. It just feels dumb.
Yeah, it does feel dumb. That's where I think it's not only a question of equality. It's a question of what are you doing? It's really, really stupid. And Evangeline Lilly's really, really good. I mean, she's great. Not using someone like that to the full is also really, it's just such a waste, a glaring waste. But
right.
But there was great thing. I thought the visual invention of it was really, really interesting, and Michelle Pfeiffer's really tremendously charismatic, and yeah, there was some cool stuff in it. But I think analysis is really important, because I think it's such a shame that the work of some brilliant people can be dismissed as it was a crap film. It wasn't a crap film. It had some bad stuff in it and some good stuff and some really, really good stuff in it. So, and I think that dismissing something as rubbish, as bad, is such a disaster when so many people's art and so much money is vested in it. Film and arts in general, film, TV, theatre, can be analysed and it can be changed and corrected.
I think that is true, but I feel like the medium, like the art form in question, has to sort of almost request that the analysis take it seriously. And if it's not requesting it, if you make sort of a silly film and it doesn't turn out well, I don't know if anybody really needs to spend any time, thinking too hard about it. Even if a lot of money is spent.
I think they do before it comes out.
I think they try to, but I think that, it is a very, like, filmmaking is, it's such a mysterious process. And, there's a reason why, I don't know, just things with great people can turn out so poorly.
When you say it's mysterious, I kind of disagree in a way, because I think it is mysterious, but I just think it shouldn't be. I think you can learn basic script writing. You can learn that there is a formula for screenwriting, narrative. There are these, and if you don't like the term formula, which sounds prescriptive, there are tropes, there are tendencies in human storytelling which have been happening for thousands of years. And one can analyze them, and you can learn them, and you can learn what a basic script looks like, a functional script. You can learn what it looks like. And I think all script writers and screenwriters and playwrights should learn that formula and then do better than it, because what happens in Quantumania is they've done worse than it. They don't know it.
I think what I mean by mystery is that, for example, like I'll use my play. I think there are some places that it's very funny, right? To me, the places where I think it's very funny in the script didn't get any laughs. Places where I didn't know it was funny or didn't think it was that funny got laughs. And a lot of that was down to the performers and the director and the way things were emphasized and conveyed and carried. So I guess the thing is that in the sort of rendering of something, the rendering itself isn't something that you can pin down or see in advance. So you could write a very mediocre comedy, but if you get the right person in there and they can deliver it in the exact right way, it'll seem like the funniest thing that ever was, but you won't be able to see it on the page.
Well, yeah, but I think it's a danger that sort of argument comes down to, well, Quantum Mania wasn't good. Well, let's try again. No, wait a minute. You can get it to the best possible. I think the way you get a great piece of art or a great film, for example, is what we're talking about, is to write the best script possible. Get it to you're spending millions on this. Get it to the best version on paper that you can. Then then try it with the best actors you can. So the fact that the actors can make it or break it doesn't mean that you should start off with the best platform that you can from them to launch from.
No. I'm not saying that all you're saying is true, and I'm not saying I don't think it's. I guess I just think that you can have the great script and you can have the great actors, but if it's a great film, it's going to be some bit of like, we couldn't have foreseen that. Something like Princess Bride, which is, it's a great script with amazing performers, but the film itself turned out to be a bit of magic. There's something about it that it's above itself. It sort of glows. There's a golden glow about it throughout. And I feel like it just has that serendipitous collision of all these different things working out very well at the same time. Because I feel like that film in a different filmmaker's hands with a different cast could have turned out pretty average and maybe even kind of unpleasant. Like it just wouldn't have hit right.
I'm going to Hamilton you now because
oh no,
Princess Bride. Yeah, I don't think it's great. I mean,
you think Hamilton's great even though you didn't like it?
Yeah, I like the Princess Bride, but I like it. I think it's sweet, but I sort of...
Is that your Hamilton?
Maybe it is, yeah. I mean, I think I've seen it a couple of times, and I like bits of it. But I think when I saw it, I was heavily into, Tolkien-esque fantasy, and it seemed to me like a kind of desperate attempt to recreate something that was...
I didn't think it had anything to do with that. With Tolkien or with the fantasy. No. It was pure fun. It was pure storytelling, fable fun.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think this is going to sound awful, but it felt very sort of American to me.
Yeah.
In terms of, like a foreign attempt to do a European, sort of Western European fantasy, I think.
I can understand that. I think, maybe take Princess Bride out of it. I more mean that I think that there's, and I hope it's sort of like when you're finally filming Hold Excalibur, I do think you'll probably have the best possible script and you'll have great actors. And, this sort of the last thing that I sort of hope for you is that it just all comes together in that way where everything's a little bit, everything is just comes together right. And when things come together right, and you can't control that, it's sort of like the weather or something like that. There seems to be something
I hope so, yeah.
where it just becomes a magical thing. And I think that's what we're looking for in film, is that sort of like that. We're looking for things that are a little bit better than they should be. And they come together for some reason that we don't quite understand. And there's just this, lovely magic about it. And I think that's what filmmakers are always always hoping for. But it's like hard. You can't pin it down exactly. You can't make it happen. You can't say this is how it does. It's just this weird weather pattern.
Yeah,
that might be an opinion. I don't know.
Well, I think it's opinion. I think it's obviously true. But yeah, I know what I wanted to tell you, that we're in kind of pre-production. Well, we are in pre-production.
Oh, tell me.
So we've been doing the concept artists have been doing cool concept art, and I have a meeting in a couple of days about a particular monster from Welsh legend called an avanc, which is just, too much fun to contemplate. I can't wait. But one thing that we've been doing is maps. We're making a map of legendary Wales, and it's done by the art director on our film, Dave, and it's just beautiful. I mean, he is an utter genius. His artistic skill is off the scale, and it's stunningly beautiful, and it's so exciting. I mean, I love maps anyway, but just to see the things that I've realized in this form is beyond thrilling. And all the images there's such incredible skill gone into them. And one of the real thrills of it, we're realizing this lost kingdom from Welsh legend called Cantre'r Gwaelod, and it's the sunken kingdom. It's sometimes called the Welsh Atlantis. And imagining what that looks like is really, really exciting. And we've got the concept artist Sam Alvarez, who's just knocking out these stunning images of a kind of robed figure with a staff looking out over this sunken, ruined kingdom. And just maps of it and all this stuff is so exciting.
It's interesting is as you're saying that, I'm picturing those things, and all I'm seeing is like AI art generations, or because it seems like a lot of like AI art is sort of like the mysterious hooded figure with the staff looking over the beautiful land. But it's interesting that you're working with all these different artists, from character creators to, map makers and visualizers. And I don't know, that it almost feels like old fashioned.
Well, to be honest, sometimes they are. Dave, the art director, is a very old-fashioned. I mean, he was educated at the Slade School, which is a very prestigious school in Britain, in London, and he has come up through done loads of theatre design and everything. He's enormously traditional skills that he has, and he's completely open to using AI to fill in, to perhaps to do a background or something on an image. I mean, he uses it. I know he's used it on one image, and he told me. I funnily enough, I didn't. It was the only image I think that he's done. It's of a character, but I said I don't really like the background, and that was the bit that he just filled in with AI, just as a sort of experiment. But I think it's. I mean, I know you use AI for occasionally. You sort of showed me how it could be useful to rewrite something that one could then rewrite, like descriptions of things.
Yeah, I use it for if I have to shorten something, or I haven't done it. I haven't used text like Chat GPT that much. I've asked a bunch of questions. I do like AI art, but I have a lot of misgivings about it because I have friends that are artists, and they are incredibly threatened by it. So to me, it's I feel like I don't understand. I feel like we can't stop it.
Yeah.
I feel like some rules are going to be drawn soon where, I just feel like we need the rules. I think we need to go, like, we need to have a sense of what the playground of our world is going to look like. And because we don't want, I don't want, people that are like the people that are working on your films, these artists working on your films, extracted from the world because we can create these artificial images and we don't, we can make fake maps or whatever. But I just feel like there's a real need for the rules to be set down so that we can see what this AI, how this AI art stuff should be used in our world. And I feel like it's playful stuff. I feel like we can use it playfully, or to do certain types of fun gestural stuff, but never get rid of the artists.
Yeah,
I feel like that's sort of and I feel like that seems to be the threat. And I don't know how real it is, because I can't imagine us having a world where all of a sudden we don't need actual artists. Whether it's visual artists, music, it seems, I don't know, what kind of world is that? I just feel like we're not going to end up there. So I'm just waiting for the rules. Who's coming up with these rules of how it can be used and how we can say that we can't use it here, we'll use it in this space, have fun with it, but, don't fire graphic designer.
Well, I feel we ought to wrap up there. I just want to say that I saw two things that just because I've been quite negative, I feel. I saw a program called Bodies on, I think it was BBC. It's
yeah, I saw the first episode.
The sci-fi kind of sci-fi detective thing.
Yeah, or there's sort of like, it's not time, well, maybe it is time travel eventually, but sort of like it's the same body shows up in 3, 4, 5 different time periods in the same little alleyway, and you have 3 or 4 different detectives that are sort of trying to figure out sort of the murder of this person. Yeah, and, I thought that was very compelling.
Yeah, it was really good, but I thought what was great was that it managed to sustain those different narratives really well. It was a sort of lesson in how to have several narratives going at once.
I agree with you. I thought it was one of those things where from the start of the first episode to the end of the first episode, you really don't get very much other than this is the kind of storytelling we're going to do, which is this sort of, so it's this, I think after the first body is discovered, maybe after the second one, you start getting a little hungry about the mystery, like what's going on here? But you don't get much satisfaction there. Instead, you get, we're going to travel to a new time, place, with a new detective, and they're going to have their personal experience with this body. And it'll be a little bit different than the other two, and that's going to be interesting. But really, it was just a setup episode. Like, almost like the premise of the show is going to be this. So it almost doesn't really satisfy in a storytelling type way, in a to B or A to Z. It's just sort of like, it's getting you ready for the rest of the show.
And the other one I saw was Culprits, which kept me going. I think that's on Disney. Should have made a note, but it had one of the best endings I've seen in a long time. It was really,
Is this a film?
No, it was a series with Gemma.
Oh, I see. So you saw the whole thing.
Yeah, Gemma Arterton and several other luminaries. But it was great. It was really good. But I thought it ended so well. It was very satisfying.
I know that we're getting close to ending, but what Lois and I have been doing is we've been watching movies from the 80s that we did not see, that appeared and that we knew about but failed to watch. So we saw Terms of Endearment, which I never had seen, Deborah Winger and Jack Nicholson. We saw The Lost Boys, which you'd mentioned. Lois had never seen that. And it's strange. I thought they would be a little better and a little worse in different ways. I don't know how to really be concise there, but I thought Terms of Endearment would be a little bit sharper, but it hasn't aged that well. I think when it came out, it was probably a smart, wacky dramedy, but as it sits now, it just is kind of strange. It's sort of like the thing that made it kind of this wacky adult comedy drama now just doesn't, I don't know. We've had too much of that. We've gotten smarter at it or better at it or something like that. And so it feels a little, I don't know, clangy. Something wrong in the engine. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's wrap up there.
And thus we come to the end of another classic episode of How to Make a Film. Leave a gloriously stunning review of our podcast on iTunes and you'll win all sorts of prizes, signed and unsigned. Please feel free to email your questions to podcast@secretplanet.co.uk. Sign up for updates on Dan's film Hold Excalibur, now in pre-production at secretplanet.co.uk. How to Make a Film was hosted by Dan Freeman and Sean Hurley. Produced by Jamie Walsh. Edited by Ethan Walsh.